I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and honest, rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. Not around me.
Hey.
We're back.
We are back. I can see you bopping away in the background to Goosebumps. As always.
Every time.
You're right. Loaded Mag NUFC. Welcome to another fully loaded transfer show. We are back again after a brilliant show last night with Liam Kennedy and Jordan Cronin for another one with Graeme Bailey, and we're going to get him on very, very shortly. But Daz, how are things? How are you?
All good at me. Very busy day, Pete. Well, I suppose first week back from holidays, but yeah, back in here. Richie couldn't make it tonight, and we will catch up with him later. And actually, give an old tweet to Ricky Gervais if you're have your phone handy as well, and make sure, because Chris is at the Ricky Gervais show in the front row. So I would love it. If Ricky Gervais started picking on Chris. So yeah. Just call. I've already asked him to call out for a guy called Avon. So yeah, we'll see if this works. So yeah, do it now. And also hit that like button while you're at it, because we have to send a target. I think we go for 500 again, Pete.
Why not? We hit the target yesterday? We already hit the target. We're there. Yes. So why not 500 again? Let's hit that target right now and welcome in everyone. Already over 100 in the chat. Great to have you all with us. And of course, let's name some of you. We've got David Cook in there. Great to see you in there. Paul Gallatin, as always. N9NE, great to have you in there. Andy in the house. Hope you're well. Jason Scott, I know you put the flames emojis with regards to Goosebumps. I saw that came up. Tom Dixon, great to have you in there, and he's already in there with his questions. Craig Lee, of course. James Ferguson, as well. Many others too.
And a new member in the shape of Jamie. Jamie, thanks for becoming a member. That'll get you into that draw for next week's spinny wheel. So keep your eye out for that next week on next week's shows. But so cheers, Jamie.
Definitely. And of course, the notification bells. If you haven't clicked those buttons already, make sure you do. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, we had over 20 new subscribers last night. Let's get another 20 tonight. So click that subscribe button and come and join the Loaded family. But of course, we are here because we want to hear the thoughts of Graeme Bailey on all things Newcastle United. So let's get him in. Why not?
Here he is. Here's ASM's biggest fan. It's Graeme.
Welcome, Graeme.
Evening, guys.
I don't know what he's up to. He's catching up on a game, or is it breaking news?
That's just how I have my I have laptop there, monitor. You guys over there, I've got it on 3 different levels.
Oh wow. We're fully stocked and certainly
fully loaded.
Fully loaded. You are right. Absolutely right. But Graeme, great to have you back on again. Always a pleasure to have you on the channel. I think we were talking about it. Daz asked the question, has this summer, this transfer window, been sort of one of the busiest from a journalistic perspective, or is this just the run of the mill now when the summer windows are in play?
Yeah, it's getting run of the mill. It's been pretty hectic this summer. The Premier League busy as always, and then we're throwing the Saudi situation in, which is just a whole new level. And we're luckily through Newcastle. Actually, I've got a few contacts in Saudi, which are coming up trumps now. With confirming a few other deals away from Newcastle, so that's helped me out, to be honest. So I'm using some of my Newcastle contacts to help me with other things. So yeah, but it's hectic. It's we're seeing all this stuff around Fulham today. All the stuff with losing Silva and Mitrovic to Diaby and Villa and all sorts. We've been all over. I'm doing Man City, seeing what they're doing instead of Mahrez, who's gone to Saudi. It's all linked to Saudi at the minute. So yeah, it's been another busy day.
Definitely. And of course, it's been another busy day for Newcastle United, that's for sure. Lots and lots of stuff going on at this point in time. And look, first of all, the boys are in the US. They've arrived on their tour for the summer series in Atlanta, and they've been out and about enjoying their time. They're also at a baseball game as well, enjoying the sights and all sorts. So the boys are there, nice and chilled, ready for their first game on a Sunday. But of course, there's one player that isn't there with them. It's been well documented. Allan Saint-Maximin is very, very close to making his move to Saudi. For around £30 million. Look, I have to say, Graeme, you were someone that mentioned this very, very early on in your piece. That's dating back a few weeks. Talk to us about the Allan Saint-Maximin deal. When it sort of first kick-started and when you were first made aware, and just give us your opinion really on the fact that it becoming really, really close in terms of the green light and being signed off.
Yeah, we'll start there. It has been given the green light. It's been signed off. My understanding is it's quite a bit less than 30 million. Actually, it might be near 25 million euros this deal, which is a bit of a shock. I didn't think that. He is going to one of these other PIF clubs, so in Al Ali. So I believe that's the club that Marco Silva might be going to as well. Forgive me, guys. I do get. I'm doing that many Saudi stories. There's the PIF for an Etifak as well. I do get myself confused sometimes, but I do believe that's the one who Marco Silva might be going to. I will confirm that in a minute, but it's been ongoing since probably since the end of the season. We know for a while now Saint-Maximin has wanted that new contract. He wasn't going to get it under Eddie Howe. His deal, from my understanding, is very incentive based. It's based appearance based as well. So his actual wage it's not low, but it's not one as high as you might think. And he, as we know, guys, we discussed on the show, he hasn't been playing that well to warrant a big move. Like we saw the likes of Arsenal and Tottenham being linked. That was he was never going to go to a top 4 team, another top 4 team. He was never going to go there. Maybe links to Everton, Palace. That's his level. That's where he would have been gone to, and nobody was going to give him a huge pay rise. So Newcastle, are one of the ones benefiting from able to sell a player to the Saudi Pro League, the SPL, as they're now dubbing themselves. So, and obviously Saint-Maximin realizes that. I don't think if he went back to France, he wasn't going to get a big pay rise, and sometimes it just has to be that big push. He has to decide where he's going to get his better money, and he's going to join the influx now of these players going to Saudi. He's obviously not one of the marquee names there, but the amount of players that are going there. By the time the window finishes, between these 4 teams in Etifak, we're talking well over 50 players probably. But there's 18 teams in this Pro League, guys. I don't know if people realise how big the Pro League is, the top flight. It's 18 teams. So there'll be other teams getting involved as well. So I'd be interested. I think this move suits him, guys. It really does. He wasn't going to be in contention for France at the Euros next summer. So I don't think that's an issue. I think it's one that suits all parties, for me personally, I just didn't ever see him as an Eddie Howe player. I saw in person his lack of work rate, where he's slamming the ground with his fists and stuff, where I don't doubt his passion, but that's Eddie Howe needs passion and performance. He needs passion and running. He needs to take a leaf out the likes of the Longstaff and the Murphys books, where players who aren't as talented as him but put a lot more effort in.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about as a channel with regards to ASM. We've had this conversation now for a while with regards to ASM, and look, Graeme, you called it the last couple of times you've been on the channel with us. You called it when we talked about it in January again. Earlier on in this window about Maxi going, and it was the best thing that he moved on, because obviously you've not rated him as highly as some fans in the fan base do. But Daz, I'll come to you, because there has been a little bit of a split between the fan base on social media. There has been kind of a very opinionated people with regards to they love Maxi, they don't want him to go, but then there's some that are saying he had to leave, not good enough, all the rest of it. What have you made of kind of the split? And do you think it's justified that there is a split for Allan Saint-Maximin?
I do. I can see why there is a split. Yeah, you could even see it in the chat last night. I was watching the chat closely, monitoring the questions last night, and when Liam Kennedy was speaking about ASM, people weren't having it. He does really split opinion, and people look back at the good times he had under Bruce, but yeah, we kind of touched on it through the season as well, Pete, in our review shows. By him trying to adapt to an Eddie Howe way of playing, he lost something in himself. He lost that kind of spark that we all enjoyed, and he did try to adjust, and we didn't get as much of the spark that we're used to. And then we started to question them ourselves at times. And then we said it last night as well. There was some games he turned up. It just came down to consistency in the end. Ideally, we would be able to keep him in the squad, but would he be happy to be a part-time player? And as he kind of was last season, so maybe as Graeme is saying, maybe it is for the best. And we're going to get on to who we're bringing in, and he will tick the box more for Eddie Howe, and with our massive season that's coming.
The numbers don't lie, though, guys, do they? From when we first did this story, a lot of people we knew the Harvey Barnes link, but people were criticising this. But just look at this. Look at Saint-Maximin's stats. They're just not good enough. 1 goal last season, 12 goals since he's arrived. Matt Ritchie scored more goals for Newcastle than Allan Saint-Maximin. That sums it up, guys. What player we talk about? This he couldn't lace the boots of a Ginola, etc. He was good. He was a stand-up player in a very poor Newcastle team. He's a mid-level Premier League player, and I'm not being wise in hindsight. I've said this all along. It's just you're on a level now which is far superior to his. It's just as simple as that. And fair play. You'd rather be on this level now than be at his level.
Yeah. And I guess for us as fans as well, we were just always waiting for the next game. The next game he'll produce. The next game he'll produce. And then now and again he did, but it wasn't enough. And going forward in this project, it wasn't going to be enough either. So it is what it is. We move on.
Definitely. Just one thing before we move on to the next section. Eddie Howe's talked about, Graeme, FFP being a sticking point with regards to that. I mean, me personally, in an ideal world, I would have loved Allan Saint-Maximin and Harvey Barnes, and we'll get on to Harvey Barnes in a second, to fight it out for that left wing position. Ideally, his strength in numbers in that position, but it didn't work out that way. Do you concur with Eddie Howe and his thoughts with regards to how important FFP was in that situation, in terms of is having to get ASM out the door to recoup some money?
A little bit. I think he was going anywhere. I really do. He wanted this new deal. He wasn't getting it. He wasn't happy. So he was going to go anyway. For me, we knew he was linked to a move just after January, wasn't he? He was always been linked to a move. The FFP thing, Newcastle are really hammering this home. PIF are being looked at very closely by the authorities, and I personally don't agree with it. You know, they're under more pressure, more scrutiny than any other club has been in Premier League history. I guess that comes with this sort of ownership package. You know, you got to expect it. But Newcastle have to be seen to be whiter than white, and unfortunately that. And it's not to say if they weren't being looked at, they'd break all the rules. But I think if they're the ones who I think the FA and Premier League would love to make an example of, if a little toe over the line. So I think they're probably being a bit safe. And we are going to see more deals, and we'll discuss it further in the show. I think we may even see some big name loans, maybe, possibly. But the FFP thing is a useful tool, because obviously, you know, Saint-Maximin is one of them squad players that Newcastle wanted out anyway. They need to make room, and we talk about FFP, but people, especially non-Newcastle people, when I speak to people in the game and stuff, and people don't realise how big this Newcastle squad is. And I've always said to you guys, haven't I, on the show, where the level from your best player to your worst player, I think it's the biggest spread in the Premier League, from your best to your worst. You know, you've got Isaac Hayden's back at the club, for God's sake. You know,
Jeff Hendrick.
Yeah, Jeff Hendrick, Ryan Fraser, Matt Ritchie, we talked about. You've got so many hangers on in this squad. People don't realise that Newcastle, you could get rid of 6 to 8 players and people wouldn't notice. And that's what they need to try and do. But it's not easy. And we said these guys aren't on 100, 200 grand a week, but they are on good Premier League wages, 50, 60, 70s. And the Championship clubs, which is what these players are, Championship players, they're not in a position to take these wages.
Yeah. David alludes to it there in this point. How we've got so much money tied up with wages. What is the realistic way out? And unless we're going to send a few to borrow, Graeme, and we pay some of it.
Well, Carl Darlow was the only one who's linked. I'm thankful we haven't gone down that route, but I think that there's a few options there. I think you'll try and send some to Saudi. I do. I think if you look at the likes of Dubravka and because we'll see this, you know, guys, we're seeing these landmark players now, but I think we will see the second coming of some of these players. You know, the lesser lights. So maybe we see they're in this. It's a real difficult position with these players where an Isaac Hayes and Jeff Hendrick just aren't quite. They should be moving to Australia or something. It shouldn't be that league. That's where they're at. We've just hung on. It's just a hangover of the last era of giving out 2 longer contracts. But that's the thing in the Premier League, that you do give out a long-term contracts. People don't like to see people move on a free, and I think that's the big thing here, you know. And they're getting the wage structure back in line now. But yeah, it is a big thing. I think that's the thing. What's killing it at the moment with this FFP. But I think Newcastle will pull a few rabbits out the hat, and we'll get into it later in the show. I do think there's a few deals there to be had, but as it stands, they really are trying to move some of these players on, and I think we will see a few of them go. But we're not even in August yet, guys, are we? So I think when the problem is as well, when you try to move on a Hendrick or a Hayden, you try to say I want a sale or whatever. These Championship clubs are willing to hang on to get the best deal possible, and that's not helping Newcastle.
Yeah.
It's like Dazuna, because we've done these chats where it shows like window after window. When we've got players that we want gone, it's always late in the window that we get our players out the door, because exactly what you've just said, Graeme, is that the teams that want these players will hang on as long as they possibly can. Wouldn't even surprise us if it's like 1 or 2 games, because the Championship season starts a week early, like 1 or 2 games in, and it would be like, well, there might be an injury, or there might be, you know what, start the season, our squad's a bit light. Let's now go for that player. And it's kind of like, you know, but us as fans, we're just like, get them gone now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And out the door. So
they'll pay a percentage of their wages then, and it's just because we would be desperate to get rid of them, because they're just going to sit in reserves otherwise. So,
well, Graeme made that point, to be fair, Daz. He said, as Hayden's back, Hendrick's back. There's a couple of others that have got Fraser. They're not on the US tour. You didn't see any of them in the pictures. You haven't even seen them in the warm-ups, in the training pictures. They are like literally wiped out from Newcastle. And it's horrible to say, because of the point that we've talked about before, is that the service that they've given to the club. But that we need to move on. We really do. And there's a couple of links with a couple of those players that we'll bring up a little bit later. But Daz,
Yes, there's a few, and I've lost track because I've stopped looking at the chat for a second. But there's a few of these. Oh, not that. This one.
Super chat received.
Not one.
Super chat received.
Two. At least I know there's before, but this is three.
Super chat received.
Oh, what have we got here? Shout out to Geordie Mick. He's the man that gives a good hug, is Geordie Mick. So evening, gentlemen, and Daz, obviously. Yeah, thanks for that, Mick. Also, a shout out to Anne to an Army. Thanks for your donation as well, Anne, for £5. Great to have Barnes over the line. At long last, he's a tune player now. So come on, let's back him. Yeah, there's a bit of negativity around him in the fan base as well. He will give you 110%, which is all you can ask, which is true, Anne. And also from Geordie Mick again, love Maxi, but we need to evolve, and consistency is key going forward. Full faith in Eddie and his team. Yeah, true, exactly. Couldn't agree more, Geordie Mick. But thanks everyone for the donations.
Definitely. And look, you brought us nicely onto that because, obviously with Allan Saint-Maximin going out, it looks like Harvey Barnes is very, very close to joining Newcastle. We had Jordan last night that said he talked about a fee being agreed. But we also had Keith Downey from Sky Sports saying that it was going to be around the sort of 30 million mark. Ornstein came out last night, breaking news, and had it as a 38 million. But from your perspective, Graeme, this is dating back to April this year. You were quite early on with this link to Harvey Barnes, and obviously have since, as it's broken, and you've wrote the piece as well with regards to the 38 million pound including add-ons deal for Harvey Barnes being done. Just talk to us about how long this has been in the works for Newcastle with Harvey Barnes. How good of a signing will he be for Newcastle, and how is he going to improve us as a team?
Personally, I love Harvey Barnes. He's a wonderful player. Newcastle fans, the ones who aren't rating him, clearly haven't watched him much. He's a sensational player. He's added goals to his game last season. He's got a really good chance of going to the Euros, guys. He's that good. He could go with England. He's a future England national. I think it's fantastic. He's going to be up there with the likes of Ginola for me when he's finished at Newcastle. He's sensational. He really is. He's got goals. He's got everything. Excitement. He's Saint-Maximin with an end product. That's what he is. He's just as exciting, but he's got an end product as well. He's a sensational player. He's going to score goals from that side. He's going to allow the rest of that forward line to move away, to find space. He's not going to hug the ball. Again, it's such an end product with him. I think he's great. I was told around Easter time that Newcastle were taking a real keen interest in him, as they were watching James Maddison, obviously. Obviously, Dan Ashworth and the scouting team done the work. And I think they're delighted to pay less than 40 for him, which they have done. And yeah, it's a sensational piece of business. You can argue whether Newcastle still need number 10. I think they do, but we'll come on to that later in the show. But I think it solves a big need. A left-sided forward was something they really, really wanted. They really did. And Barnes is a fantastic solution. West Ham were keen. I think Newcastle have capitalised. There's a bit going on at West Ham in the hierarchy. The new director of football, Tim Steeden, and David Moyes is butting heads with people there. So I think Newcastle capitalised on that. They're taking advantage, and he was there to be had, and they've taken that advantage. And yeah, sensational signing. I love. It's been a bit of time coming, but Barnes and Tonali improved Newcastle massively. Obviously, you guys as fans want to see more. I think you need more. Obviously, we'll touch on Diaby and the other things that Villa are doing and the other clubs around the top six. You do need to do this. If you're standing still, you're going backwards in the Premier League. So I think it is needed. But yeah, sensational sign for me. I love him, guys. He's going to become a toon hero very, very quickly. He is. If you guys liked Allan Saint-Maximin, you ain't saying nothing yet. This kid's better than him by a long way.
Just while you mentioned the two players there, Barnes and Diaby, I know they're not exactly 100% similar either, but like there's a lot of people who are saying on Twitter, like, why are we going for Barnes and why didn't we go for Diaby? What's your opinion on who, if you for Borough, who would you take if you could have either?
They're playing different. To start off, they're playing different positions. The two playing different positions. One's right, one's left. You know, I think you saw in the Euros the player who Newcastle intend to play on the right going forward in the long term, and that's Anthony Gordon, and he was sensational in that tournament. Eddie Howe sees him as a right forward, possibly centre forward. So I think he firmly believes he's well covered in there. You know, would it surprise me if Gordon, Isaac, Barnes was your front three going forward? It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think that's something he's got in mind. Full of pace, young, all of them very, very young. That could be your front three for the next 5-6 years. So I think that's why not signed Diaby. He's a right winger. I love Diaby. As you know, guys, I've been speaking with you guys probably for more than 12 months now, and one of our first conversations was about Diaby. Newcastle liked him. Piff wanted him. Piff wanted him again to take him to Al Nassr. I think you could have done with him. Like I'd have took him ahead of Anthony Gordon. I must admit, I do quite like Gordon. I do, but there's a high ceiling with Gordon. But Diaby's finished product, he's a sensational pickup for Villa. He really is. And I wouldn't say he's the same price. He's a bit more than Barnes. You know, he's a little bit more, maybe 10 million more. So I wouldn't say it's the same price. But saying that, Newcastle wanted a left forward, so Barnes is a better fit. Okay. Diaby is a right-sided winger. You know, you've got Almiron there. Obviously, he's better than Almiron, but I think they see Anthony Gordon in the future there. You know, in an ideal world, I think if money was no object, you might have gone for him as well. But I think while you needed that left winger, number 10, we said that we knew what Eddie Howe and the club wanted. Barnes is the right signing for Newcastle.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and there's a few in the chat, and there's a few that have kind of, you know, raised this point with regards to the Diaby situation and sort of Aston Villa. And, you know, they keep saying, you know, why are Villa allowed to keep spending this sort of money? Like, why is FFP not caught up with them? And one of the things is the fact that they sold Grealish for 100 million. So, you know, you look at FFP, you know, we're buzzing at Allan Saint-Maximin going for around 30 million because it allows us to go out and spend, and like everyone's kind of working out how much we're able to spend and how many players are meant to get in. Just think if we got 100 million through the door for a player, you know, you're able to.
It doesn't really work like that, though, Pete, because it's the next accounts and next year. It doesn't really work like you got to look ahead, and it depends. And when you're buying a player, you spread the cost over a certain period. Barnes isn't 35 million off your thing. It's over this. If it's over 3 years, it's 10, 10, 10. I think fans. And it does get my goat a little bit. I know whenever I do a story, fans are obsessed with fees, and I don't get it because I'm never obsessed with fees. When I hear Mills with things, it's like there's so many micro accountants out there. You'd love to know fees. You know, it's just one of those things where you have to. The FFP is a bit more complicated than 1 in 1 out. We spend 30, we bring it in. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than that. There really is. You know, in terms of the income and everything. I think Newcastle are just playing it safe, as I said before. They really don't want to be up against, you know, the white line and go toe across it. But we're still not in August yet, though. So Newcastle, you know, they're doing a good job of pleading poverty at the minute. But let's see how much they've spent towards the end at the end in September. Yeah, let's see who's in the club come September. Got a sneaking suspicion it's more than we think.
Speaking about, sorry, yeah. Speaking about feeding poverty, we've got a super chat. Johnny Two for Life is alerting it to us. We did not see it, but we just were waiting for the right time to bring it up.
Received.
And it comes from. And hey guys, it's looking like Diaby is on the way to Villa. We just talk about that, Daniel. Is this another Madison and Szoboszlai situation where we have missed out? Really wanted to improve our options on the right wing. Yeah, and Graham has just alluded to that there too. If we had the cash, it might have, or if we had the wiggle room in financial fair play, and we didn't have to strengthen in other areas as well, maybe he was one that we would have looked at for sure, Daniel.
Graeme, I've got a question for you with regards to, the Harvey Barnes situation. Do you think Barnes being English plays a huge factor in that? Because it's something that we've discussed as a channel, and obviously sections of the fan base discussed this. And there has been questions this summer. Is it when we're linked to players? Why is it always English players? Because they see the fancy foreign players being linked to. There's one or two that we've all talked about and potentially been excited to look at. But then the players that we seem to be going for are more sort of closer to home. Is that something that, in your mind, is fundamental with Eddie Howe in the club in particular?
I think you can't underestimate a player with Premier League experience, and so if it's a choice between two players, I don't think it's a purely Newcastle Eddie Howe thing. I think you'll see that quite a lot. Eddie Howe likes players with a bit of experience. That's not to say he won't sign the experience, but it fits what they like to build. I don't think it's a necessary crucial factor in it. Obviously, you have to keep, especially in Champions League now, you have to keep an eye on homegrown players and stuff in the Premier League as well. And in terms of homegrown players, remember, guys, you get an extra these jokers, these signing jokers you can make. It's currently set at 2 a year that you can sign anyone from around the world without a permit. If you're very good with the homegrown thing, you can sign up to 4. So that comes into play as well. It's something that you can expand your academy using that system. So yeah, lots of these things come into play. I think Newcastle are fairly well set in terms of homegrown products. Not nearly enough homegrown products. I was delighted to see the Miley brothers getting their chance. I think Newcastle is something they need to work on. But again, it's tough when you're in the Champions League. Do you get a chance to throw these young players in? No, it's not. You don't get these chances, do you? So. Yeah, I think it is a consideration, Pete, but I don't think it's a massive one.
No, it's interesting because, like I say, these are questions that come out with regards to the fan base. So it's at times, so it's always good to ask these sort of questions because these are things that are on people's minds. We see them in the chat tonight.
It's not something I've heard coming out from the club per se, or when I've been to people involved in Newcastle transfers. It's not something I've really heard in the last 6 months.
No, that's fair enough. Look, over 300 in the chat. I'm not sure how much. This was earlier, by the way. It might be more than this now. 76 at the time. We can get 330 likes right now. Just click that like button. And while you're there, if you're new, subscribe. Why not? Come and join the Lodi family. So let's get that number up. And I'm sure Michael and the guys and girls in the chat will keep an eye on things. And don't forget, get your questions in for Graeme. Already some questions popping in there. Daz has started a number of them already, and we'll get to them in just a second. But we'll get those questions flying out very, very shortly. Interestingly, some news popping out today. Not long ago, before we came on, actually, with regards to this man, Tino Livramento, a player that, as the channel have talked about, we said last night we did a reaction to is putting a bid in for him a few weeks ago. We thought it might be in position to go. Craig Hopers mentioned earlier on today, Livramento is still being worked on from that perspective. And then all of a sudden this evening, Jacob Steinberg of The Guardian reported that we're now close to signing Livramento. Southampton close to selling him to Newcastle, which has been rumoured to be around the 30 million mark. And again, Kinsella as well from the Evening Standard reporting Valentino Livramento closing on move to Newcastle. Player is ready to accept terms and Southampton are expected to agree a fee soon. Some people saying the fee is already agreed. but obviously we've got some journalists that are saying it's not quite there yet. From your perspective, Graeme, what do you know about Tino Livramento and his potential deal for Newcastle? Is it as close as what people are talking about tonight? And what do you make of him as a player?
I sent a few messages off. I saw these rumours doing the rounds. It's not close from what I'm told. Obviously, we know Newcastle have held talks to him. We know they want him. Southampton still want over 20 million for him. Don't think Newcastle want to go there that high. And Southampton are willing to wait. If he starts the season with them in Championship, they're more than happy to do that. They're more than happy to keep him. You know, Newcastle, if they want him, I think they're going to have to agree a deal in excess of 20 million, and they're not there yet. Personal terms is one of these. It's a very modern thing. Personal terms clearly not going to be an issue for Livramento. He's a player who Newcastle like. We know, as we said, they even inquired about Walker Peters, but he's way too much that Newcastle are willing to pay. So I like him as a player. I think he's good. He can cover both sides. He can play right and let Trippier move left. You know, he covers the right hand side more so. I'm hearing Matt Targett's playing really well in pre-season. We may see more of him, guys. So that might be a consideration as to why more for a right-hand sided player. Yeah, I like him as a player, guys. I think there's a very good chance you get him, but I don't think it's imminent.
Interesting. Always good to get your opinions on this for sure, guys. Livramento. Lots of people asking the question: why are we going for a right back? What do you make of our attempts to try and get, or certainly negotiating with Southampton for Livramento? Is it the right thing for you?
Okay, first of all, yeah, I was all for going for a left back. And yeah, then the talk and what popular opinion is that the potential for Trippier to move across to the left. I wouldn't do that myself. I'd keep Trippier on the right and get a specialized left back in. But Livramento is someone I liked. I remember when he went to Southampton first. I go, who is this guy? This guy is class. He had a great season at Southampton, and then injuries last season. So he is someone I like, and I think under Eddie Howe he could get the best out of him. He's proven as well to a degree that he's over that injury, and he's hopefully back to his best. So that's why we are interested. So he's one I would consider bringing in if the fee was right. And then the core question then would be about Ashby. What happens with Ashby? Because we thought that Ashby was coming in to kind of be that kind of apprentice of Trippier. So if Livramento comes in, it looks like that's what he would be. But we'll see how it plays out, I guess.
Definitely. I think Stu has just put it in the chat earlier. Stu Amos towards the bottom. Livramento is unreal for me. Like you said, that he kind of burst onto the scene at Southampton, and everyone's like, "Wow, where's this player come from?" Another product from Chelsea, playing really, really well. I have to say, I'd be excited about this deal. There's a long-term vision, I think, with Livramento. Certainly looking at Trippier, and what Trippier is 32, going to be 33 soon. You know, looking at the future. Livramento is only 20 years old. He's still got lots left in the game. Explosive, rapid, good crosser of the ball. Set pieces, maybe not on Trippier's level, but he's got all the other areas of his game sort of nailed down. But it's the big key thing that you mentioned, as is can he overcome the ACL injury? I think age is on his side to recover from that. But he's one hell of a player, and he can play left back, can play specialising right back. There's that versatility there, which we all know that Eddie Howe likes within his players. I'm really excited about this deal, and I really do hope that it moves along and gets done, because I actually think anywhere around 25 million to get this deal over the line. I think we could be looking at double of that in a couple of years' time, potentially. Is
it that high? I didn't think it was that high. I thought, because when we did the show first about him, it was talk about around 10 million, and then there was the whole Chelsea clause in it.
And that's why I think they want more because of the Chelsea.
They've always been asking for that. It's one thing Newcastle put in derisory bidding. That doesn't mean that's the player's worth. Southampton. So this is Southampton who want 50 million for Lavia. You know, they paid money for Livramento. Livramento is not going to be sold for under 20. Southampton don't need to sell, and they won't. Doesn't stop Newcastle bidding 10 for him, but that, you know, that's and which they were in for, but that's not his value, and they're not going to sell for that. And the same as Walker Peters, you know, he was way above that 30, but there's no hurry for these guys. I think a right back is a good signing, but I think a centre half is more a priority for you, personally.
No, it's interesting, very, very interesting. On Livramento, but yeah, you mentioned a centre back being a priority, and we talked about this yesterday. These couple of players actually that have been linked. I don't know what you know about this situation. First off, Axel Disasi has been a player that's been rumoured over the last couple of weeks with Newcastle United. Anything in that you know from your perspective, Graeme?
I think there's been contact with one of the ownership groups, but when I spoke to Newcastle contacts, it was played down to me. 25, his age, he's okay. I just don't see him as an Eddie Howe type signing. As a Newcastle sign, you know, he's not. He's 20. I say he's not a great age, 25. Moving on, he's a good player, but I don't know. It just doesn't quite work for me for him. I think there's clearly someone at the club talking to his people. They're in the mix for him. A lot of players, you know, Newcastle have been offered an awful lot of players. They really are, and I don't dispute there's someone at the club talking to his people. In terms of agreeing terms and bids, I don't think it's quite gone that far. But I said it was played down to me about 10 days ago, to be honest. So I don't think that's imminent. I'm surprised we haven't seen more with the centre half links. The one player who I think Newcastle should be taking, and I'm amazed we haven't seen stronger links. They do like this player and they have looked at him. Is Howard Bellis from City, the England '21 player. He's a real worldie. Whether City are going to let him out, he's only got a year left, so there's a chance to get him out. I love him as a player.
Was he at Burnley last season?
He was fantastic for Burnley.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. I do, but we're not sure which avenue they're going down. You know, whether they're going for someone young who can take over from Fabian Schär sooner rather than later. We'll have to see how that centre half one plays out. I wouldn't rule him out completely either. So, I think we'll see someone to come in to back up Schär. Whether I just don't see them paying big money for someone like a Disasi, who's not big money, but still 30-40 million. I think if they were going to do that, they'd be doing it already.
Well, there's another player that has been linked with Newcastle quite a bit in the summer. Came as a bit of a shock initially, but when we've looked at it on shows since that, with Chris and Richie and with myself and Daz have had discussions around it, is Joachim Andersen from Crystal Palace, and there was a report in the Mail that that Tottenham are now in and joined us in the race for Joachim Andersen. But again, it says 50 million rated Andersen. I'm not convinced. Yeah, I'm not convinced he's worth that personally. But you know, from that perspective, Graeme, are you of the same mindset that that's just not the type of player that Newcastle are going for at that price?
He's a player that Newcastle like. They like them both. They like Matt Gay. They like both these Palace players, but you have to pay for them. That's the problem. Where I think Newcastle were thinking you could get Anderson to around 30. No way. It's just buying in the Premier League is tough, and there are some deals that have a Newcastle tax on them. They do, but this isn't one of them. This is just they paid a decent amount for him. I think 22 million they paid, and they think they've turned him into a real Premier League player, which arguably they have. And so they want over 40 for him. And Matt Gay is 50-60 million. So I like him. Matt Gay, if I was going to spend money, I'd go for Matt Gay and have him and Botman together. It's a tough situation. Fabian Schär, he was good last season. Other people think he was great. I think he was good. I think Botman papered over a few cracks, if I'm being honest. And do you know what I mean? I think some of us could play next to Botman and look okay. But
hang on, Graeme, hang on. Are you trying to find a replacement for ASN now he's gone? You're gonna target a Schär next. Is that the game here?
Fabian Schär had an awfully good season, but he's not really good enough. He's a weak link in Newcastle's team. There's a reason Newcastle want a centre half. So if that back line, left back is an issue, but Fabian Schär going forward, he's not the future. He's not Sven Botman.
No, he's exactly.
Yeah. I think if you get another season out of Schär, you'll be lucky. And I think Newcastle know this. Dan Ashford knows it. Eddie Howe knows it. But you got to be careful of how long do you keep. We've discussed your squad. There's a handful of players there you've kept more longer than you should have. So Schär for me personally, you should have someone replacing him now, and he should be on the bench, etc., etc. But I think that's an area of the team that needs improving. I'm talking about Newcastle as a Champions League team now. If you sold Fabian Schär today, guys, who would be buying him?
We've already sold him yesterday, Pete. We talked about it off there. We're sending him to Saudi after the end of this season for 30 million.
If we're talking Premier League, we're talking what we're talking in the Premier League, the Evertons of this world, that sort of level. So I think he performed brilliantly last season. He's one of the players who stepped up a level. Can you get that out of him again? That would be my worry. And I think Newcastle know that. And that's why looking at centre half. But it's not easy to replace these guys, No. Do you go for someone, as we said, Howard Bellis or someone in that ilk who can come in for him? Do you go for a ready-made replace? Because if they want Joachim Andersen, think about this, guys. Even if they got Joachim Andersen for 30, he's coming straight in the team. And who's he coming in the team for? Fabian Schär.
Graeme, it's a really good discussion, and I think it might be one that rumbles on, particularly if we get the right centre back. There's people in the chat going, "What's Graeme on about?" So he's a great defender, but
I'm with the chat.
Yeah,
he's a good defender. He's not a great defender.
But
I would have back in the Bruce days. I would be totally agree with you because I wanted Schär out, but under Eddie Howe, he's been brilliant. Look at I even go.
Don't underestimate how his life has been made so much easier playing with Sven Botman and Nick Pope.
Yeah, true.
That's a massive thing.
He's it's a controversial, but he's up there with one of our players of the season because he did have a decent season. Look, going forward, I agree we need a replacement.
He's okay, but he can't lay Sven Botman's boots.
No, Sven Botman is the future. Yeah, it's the spine of our team. There's a song about that.
Yeah, there is. But there are a lot in the chat, Graeme, that are saying, you're absolutely spot on with regards to Schär. Had a great season, but we need to look ahead. We need to move on. There's one player that somebody's mentioned that I'm a big fan of, and it's Jean-Claire Todibo that we've been linked with. Last season we were linked with, not so much in the summer.
He's shaking his head.
Yeah, don't start. Graeme.
No, he's a massive risk. He's failed at Barcelona. He's had a few good. He's played well at Nice. That doesn't make him a Premier League centre half by any stretch. Pete, that's a horrid call. He's just an accident waiting to happen to be. He was dreadful for Barcelona. Yeah, but no, Newcastle are aiming bigger and better than that. You need someone who's, if not proven in the Premier League, you need someone better. No, Todibo is not for me at all. No, I think he's not for me.
Well, the immovable object tonight, Daz. Graeme is not moving. He's not moving.
No, Bella Ketchup. I can't pronounce his name right, but from Southampton, the German lad.
Interesting. Yeah. He's a good player, Daz. He's got a lot of interest, but again, Southampton want a lot of money for him. He's a German international. It's interesting. He'd be the sort of one who could come in to back Schär up, but they want good money for him. They paid decent money for it. Everyone forgets Southampton paid decent money for these players, and that's the problem. And they're on good wages. They don't need to move him, and they've got this parachute money for this. The parachute money for the season, so we don't need to sell straight away. And that squad they've got there, they've assembled, is probably going to smash it. In my opinion, I think Southampton unless they're going to smash the Championship. I really do. Leeds not so much, but it is the way. But yeah, Bellecott's a decent player, to be fair.
And I actually just jump to one point here, and I agree with this from Dan Brown. Alex Murphy. he could be a potential one to sneak in. Now he does need to get some game time. He's good that he's getting some minutes in preseason. But a shout out to Alex Murphy. I would like to see him slot in there. One for the future. But I think before that we probably need someone who has a bit more experience.
I'm going to steal the chat for a second because Kamal should come up with an alternative that I don't know if it's going to go down well. Question for Graeme: is Maguire better than Shaw?
Overall, as a player, yeah, he had a bad season last year, but as a player, yeah, he is. Would he sit at back four? But yeah, Harry Maguire's a very good player. It's not his fault that he was playing in the high line at Man United, which made him look bad. I think under Eddie Howe, Harry Maguire would be a very good player. If he's available on loan, guys, I think sillier things have happened. But the problem again with him, guys, is his wages, huge wages, and that's not his fault. Great. You know, Erik ten Hag actually quite likes Maguire. If he was on half the wages, he'd be staying at Old Trafford and battling for his place. It's really only because of the wages he's on that they need to get rid of him. They can't have him and the likes of Wan-Bissaka. That's like £500,000 between them two. They can't have that sat on the bench.
What I'll do from my perspective, Graeme, I'll shake hands with you on Mark Gay. I'll be very happy to get Mark through the door, and I think we both agree that he's a very, very talented player. But look, this conversation may well drag on, particularly if right centre back becomes a prime target for Newcastle, when the Livramento deal goes through and that becomes the next kind of focus. But lots in agreement with you with regards to Shaw. Lots also think that Shaw is going to continue to have another good season. It's definitely one to rumble on. But I am aware of time. Are there any questions? And there's a potential topic that we could maybe discuss based on some of those questions. And
pick one. So Pete, go for it.
Well, the topic can be around this. We didn't really talk about it too much last night, but the Chronicle talked about, and this is quotes from Eddie Howe. That depends. If it's the right thing for Newcastle, we'll always act with our best interest. Now, I don't necessarily just mean this from a Saudi perspective, but what is the potential for us to go out there this summer and get loans with a view to buy? Which seems to be a topic of conversation this summer. So I don't know if there's any questions in relation to that, Daz. There may well be or not be.
I think they're very different. They're very different, Pete. This PIF loan thing is a very different thing. That is an option. You know, we discussed that when the Neymar link first came up, that he could do belong back. And now, if you know, guys, the transition, it's gone from complete denial from Eddie Howe, poo-pooed it, to now he's confirming that they could take players on loan from PIF. It's been quite a 180-degree turn there from the club and Eddie Howe, but we knew it anyway. It had to be gradual. They couldn't just confirm it straight away. We knew that was an option. I don't think there's that many players in Saudi at the moment who would be options for loans. You know, like Ruben Neves, a player I love, but Newcastle were never that keen on him in the first place, really. They weren't that hot on him. But there are other players out there, potential options. But I think we might see some big loans, you know, guys. And I mean loans with a mandatory fee. So basically signing him, but then it has to be staggered. There's lots of players who could be potential options. Conor Chiesa? He's not one of them. No, why would you sign Chiesa? That's not happening.
We all have fingers crossed there.
You look at say maybe who's unhappy. Lucas Paqueta is unhappy at West Ham. Wants out. Wants out.
Bring him on.
You know why? Is that a possible option? Who knows? But there's lots of players that you have to.
You can't just move on from that. You got
to. Pete, I've done it. You can read my story on Lucas Paqueta being unhappy. He's not happy at West Ham. He's not happy under David Moyes. He wants out. But if Newcastle were to pursue that type of deal, it would have to be. It could be a loan with a mandatory because that's the way of getting around it. There's if you went for, I don't know, like a João Felix, whatever. You know, I think that number 10 is something they'd still like, and these loans with a mandatory is the way to do it. They are risky because, you know, you bring someone loan, don't do it, but you still got to sign them. It is risky. There are players out there who still tick a lot of boxes like that, and I think Conor Gallagher, obviously, he's a really interesting one. Conor Gallagher, at the moment, he's not available. He's in Chelsea's starting lineup. Come the 12th of August, if he's not starting, he's going to be another player as well who's available and potentially is someone who we know Newcastle like. There's a lot of players out there. I think over the next month or so, guys, we'll see. And I think a possible loan deal shouldn't be ruled out. I really don't think it should be, and I wouldn't be surprised if a big loan does come in at Newcastle at some point, and they use that mandatory system to spread it out on FFP.
Interesting, very interesting. But yeah, that loan with a view to buy. And to be fair, I know we brought up Chiesa, Daz, but if you look back, like Kulusevski went on a 2-year loan. There's a number of other players that have done loans, whether it's Serie A to Serie A club or Serie A to another club in Europe. That seems like a viable option. Like, would you be happy with that, Daz? Not Chiesa as such, but Newcastle looking at that loan with a view to buy. Some people don't like that. Some people want a straight transfer. Does that bother you in any sense?
No, not at all, because it would be something Eddie Howe would sign off on in the first place. So it'll be just to get around the financial fair play, being creative. Don't
forget, Taz, as well. One of the biggest deals in history. Kylian Mbappe was alone with a mandatory when he went to PSG, if you remember. So there is ways and means around it.
Well, we'll take him as well if he wants to come. He's unhappy at PSG. He's only 1 year left, so he's welcome. But once it's signed off from Eddie Howe, no problem whatsoever. I suppose it will eat in, as Graeme says, if it didn't work out, it will eat into our outlay the following season. But I'd gamble on that for sure.
Yeah, right. Any questions in the chat? We'll throw towards Graeme before he leaves us.
Loads of questions. Let me see. The best one. We've covered some of these already, so just kind of skipping over those. Chiesa again. Okay. This one from Michael Palmer. Graeme, whose squad on paper do you rate higher, Newcastle or Villa?
Good question.
It's a very interesting question. Good friend of mine, Alex Crook at Talk Sport, he's trying to have a bet with me that Villa will finish above Newcastle. Haven't taken him up on it.
On Newcastle recently.
I haven't taken him up on Newcastle on that bet at the moment. I'm a bit biased, guys, because I love Pau Torres. I think he's a sensational player. As you know, we've talked about him before. I love him. I love Moussa Diaby. I like Ollie Watkins. I think Newcastle might have the stronger 11, but I think Villa might have a stronger squad slightly. I think they might edge it with that includes Diaby. I think they might edge the squad, but not necessarily the starting 11.
At the moment as well, it's not over yet. Graeme, and one that caught my eye here is from Buck Tizzer. He had a good question yesterday as well. Graeme, a while back we were linked to loads of South American prospects. Seems to have gone a bit quiet on that front recently. And how about throwing one in name there, Franca? He's been talked about even at Crystal Palace, but any rumors about us in that market?
Yeah, it appears what you missed out on. Angelo Gabriel was a player you looked at as well. He's just gone to Chelsea. Still think I really missed out on Andres Santos. Santos was the big one there because I think he's an absolute gem, guys. I think he's one you may look back on and
just got his work permit as well. Just got his work permit, so he's ready.
He doesn't need one under the new system. But that's the thing, that system's been brought in, so he doesn't need. He did qualify for it because he became a % national, but now technically you don't need one, which is why this South American market is flooded. I've got a list of 15 Brazilian names that I'm working on at the minute. Matis Franca is a really interesting one. Yeah, Palace have been linked. Chelsea looking at him as well. I just think Newcastle might do some younger ones. You know, it wouldn't surprise me. There's a few there. I think it was Cow Elias who they were looking at as well. Pedro. Newcastle, have got a camp of scouts a camp and a scouting network in South America now. Steve Nixon set it up. He's well aware of what's out there. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him bring in a few youngsters. Don't be surprised to see him signing 16-year-olds and maybe come to Newcastle in 2 years' time. That's world football. Sign these young Brazilians, letting Argentinians, Chileans, Ecuadorians, as we've seen. There's loads of people in Ecuador at the moment trying to find a new Caicedo. And so, don't be surprised if Newcastle do come up with a few South Americans in this window. And we're trying to find out who.
I'll throw another name at you before we get into more complicated questions. So, Andy Woodland asked, what about the Portuguese lad, Inácio, Sporting Lisbon, isn't he?
Yeah.
Non-starter, left-footed, non-starter.
Ooh. Shout out to Jordy Mick, who gave away 5 memberships as well. Thanks for that. Jordy Mick. Thanks for
one Portuguese centre half. If you were looking at Portugal for a centre half, the one you would want is Antonio Silva at Benfica, but you haven't been linked to him recently.
Yeah, he's young, isn't he? Very, very young centre back, got the world at his feet. He's the one. He is very, very good. Very, very good.
This one, does Graeme believe FFP is in place for protecting clubs or protecting the status quo of the Big Six? Without FFP, would we have a more competitive league at the top?
No, I don't think they're more competitive league. It's all about recruitment. Just because you've got a lot of money to spend doesn't mean you're going to get a lot of good players. Man City are where they are because they spend money, but they spend it wisely. They don't waste much. So that's the big thing. I don't agree with some of the restrictions that are in place. I must agree, but Newcastle are still spending decent amounts. Probably not the previous amounts we've seen Man City spend, etc. But I don't agree with that necessarily, protecting the status quo. But sometimes the cream just rises to the top, boys, doesn't it? And if you're good enough, you'll be up there.
Just before we go to another question, 450 in the chat tonight. Click the likes for everyone that's new and joining us on the hour mark. Click the likes and subscribe to the channel if you have just joined us. Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. One from James, but I'm going to change the question slightly because we talked about it a bit. So after Barnes, then we thought we'll be going for Livramento. You've kind of said it's not as clear cut or as far along as we might think. But after Livramento, who do you think we could bring in then?
Yeah, the plan is, still at fullback, centre half, another midfielder, a number 10. I still think there's room for someone like that as well. And that's the target, really. A number midfielder, centre half, and fullback. That's what they want. You got left-sided forward. You've got that sort of holder. Someone sits next to Bruno, complement him. As we said in the summer, and as Newcastle were briefing, they're sticking to their word. That's what they're looking for.
Graham, we had obviously the Maddison and the Szoboszlai links earlier on in the summer that didn't materialise. You mentioned that there might well still be interest in sort of a number 10 type player. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone that you're kind of hearing or we've been linked about from your circles that we may be of interest of?
Possibly. There's a couple I've heard who I can't actually say tonight. Maybe I'll just do a bit more work on that. I don't want to get people excited without saying, but it's a couple of decent names. But I think you need number 10. I do. I think it's an area where Newcastle are lacking. As I said before, even going back to the first game of last season against Nottingham Forest, you needed a Fabian Schär pile driver to break through their stubborn defence. I think we saw that on a few occasions. I think we saw Miguel Almiron make the breakthrough a few times and Saint-Maximin, but clearly them two from the start aren't really up to that unlocking defences as we were. I still think you do need that number 10. I really do. I think that'd be the going forward would finish off the team beautifully. That front three, you've got Tonali, Bruno, who can do it all really. But good old, Tonali and Bruno could end up being just a good old fashioned Scholes King combination, box to box midfielders that can both do everything. There's nothing wrong with that anymore. You don't have to be just a 6. You don't have to be just an 8. You can just be a good centre midfielder, which I think what those two are. But I do think you need that extra person in there to unlock the defence. I do think that's an area that the club are looking at and they're aware of.
Cool. You can put it in the private chat. We won't tell anyone, Graham. We won't quote you. Right. George Who for Life says, Graeme, will Newcastle make one more big signing over 50 million before the window shuts?
Maybe a player who's worth over 50, but might be the loan deal that we spoke about.
Oh, yeah.
Like it. You like this from Graeme. Michael Palmer asks, Graeme, what are your expectations for Borough this season?
I think we're one of the teams who's waiting for these loans to come to fruition. You know, the likes of Cameron Archer at Villa, is he staying put there? I'm glad to see Diaby in there because that probably pushes Archer down the pecking order a bit. Ramsey as well will probably stay there. So we're one of many Championship teams who are waiting to see if our top options are available, and then we might, then it's the same with Newcastle, where a lot of these other players are secondary options. If you miss out your first one, you come for the second one. It's fascinating how this loan market moves, but not until maybe August 12th will we know who's featuring, who isn't, and you'll see a real deluge of loan transfers happening to the Championship. So, but as it stands, I think Southampton and Leicester are looking an absolute class above. I love the business that Leicester have done. Leeds, I'd be slightly worried by what they've done so far. They've lost a lot of players. I think we've got one of the best managers in the division. But yeah, we back him. We still haven't got rid of Trebacom yet, which, although a good player, I think we need the money from him, and he hasn't been sold yet. So I think we're waiting on his sale to do big business.
I'll throw one or two more, just quick ones. Tierney, and he's gone very quiet since the start of the window. Is that dead in the water now from our point of view?
Yeah, I think obviously they're looking at more the Livramento type player. Yeah. I think Arsenal were asking a bit too much, to be honest. I think they wanted a good solid fee. I think if he was available for 2015 Tierney, I think Newcastle would still do it if he was available for that, because he can cover centre half as well. But no, his current price tag, I don't think that's an option just yet.
Cool. That's pretty much it for the questions from me, Pete. Where would you like to go next?
Yeah, just a couple of ones with regards to players going out. We talked about this one yesterday. We talked about Jamal Lewis potentially going to Watford. Don't know how much you know about that one. And then there's one from Mike McGrath tonight. He'd reported before around about Cardalo, and there was a bit of a tussle between Bournemouth and Leeds, but it looks like he could be heading to Leeds. He put that out in the last couple of hours. You heard anything on those two? Are they definitely ones that are going to be sort of rubber stamped soon?
I had heard Darlow to Bournemouth. I hadn't heard him to Leeds because Leeds are still. There hasn't been too much interest in Illan Meslier, so he might end up staying. So if Darlow, I'm not sure if Darlow want to go and serve as backup to him, which he would be, because Meslier, he had a tough season last year, but he's still a very good keeper, especially at Championship level. Jamal Lewis, a strange one. Jamal, I'm surprised he hasn't kicked on, but he hasn't had that chance. I still think there's a good player in there with him. But yeah, he just hasn't quite had that opportunity, has he? He's behind target as well, so yeah, he's probably not going to get his chance. So I think a move to Championship is an interesting one. I'm surprised he's not maybe going back to Norwich or something like that. But we'll see with that one. Yeah, but another a good one to get out. But again, you're probably going to be covering some of his wages anyway.
Yeah, definitely. One here from John Johnson. Are there any interesting players we could sign not from relegated Premier League sides? Are there any ones that you think out there that you think, oh, that would be a really good sign for Newcastle, but we haven't been linked with them as such?
There's plenty out there, guys. From the ones who haven't been linked. It's hard to find players who haven't been linked anywhere. I believe on the internet, Pete. Well, just with any team really. Maybe in France there's a few. I'm surprised you maybe not linked with, but it depends how. Again, there's the likes of Cherki or Bacola at Lyon, players like that. But again, it would have to be a loan deal because they're expensive. And they are looking at Newcastle. Are looking at these players. They're doing a good job sometimes to keep these things quiet. But yeah, I said Howard Bellish. You haven't really been linked with. I like him. I really do like him. I think it'd suit you guys down to the ground. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see what comes about. And I said, keep an eye on these loan ones, and it might be a loan from abroad because sometimes it can be used as well. it really wouldn't surprise me to see you do some sort of ambitious loan deal, and that might very well be from abroad.
Great. There's another good question here from Michael Palmer. Could we sign ASM on loan?
Oh my God.
Would you all be all prefer that? We'd have to get you back if that ever happened.
Yeah, I just said to what end, and there are better players in Saudi Arabia who you could sign on loan now. Jota, the former Celtic player, has just gone out to Saudi Arabia. He'd be a good signing. Ruben Neves, as we spoke about, Milinkovic, Savic. Who knows? Mitro back on loan. There's an awful lot of players in Saudi you can look at now. It really is. Firmino. There's going to be a lot of players linked. It's going to be fascinating. We'll keep an eye on it, guys. I think Newcastle are keeping an eye on this loan market. In an ideal world, they do want a centre half, a full back, and a number 10 to go with Barnes and Tonali. They came into summer ideally wanting 5. It was always going to be difficult, but they'll be working hard to the end of the window to try and get that.
Definitely. I think they're all the questions I think that we had in place. I think any N9 has put Wirtz. Florian Wirtz on loan from Leverkusen. I don't know.
He's a little superstar. Wirtz. He's one who Man City have been looking at. Liverpool. Wirtz is an outstanding player. Hey, if you did get him, that's the sort of player who you would want because he is a little worldie.
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. We must just give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Pete. Quick shout out. We did a detailed one last night. Quick shout out to HO Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and Botch bathroomware. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, ran by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley State, Gateshead. And there you go, Graham. If you're looking for an upgrade the bathroom, there you go. That'll sort you out. Also, a shout out to theradiatorshed.com and Russ. With his lovely radiators, he will sort you out there. We showed the loaded van yesterday. We won't show it again, but yeah, if you need and for only your radiator needs, and Russ will sort you out with the Radiator Shed, and the Install Works is the other company who installs all those items. So that is it for our sponsors.
Yeah. Well, we've asked Graham all the questions. It's been a pleasure to have you back on, Graham, and joining us again to talk all things Newcastle. Not too much gloating about ASM. I have to be honest. I'm a bit like.
I just think that I say he's a good player, and he was a good player at the right time for you, and you've moved. Look, thankfully for you guys, you've simply moved on. You're at a different level now. And we said this in August, didn't we? Before the season started, it's going to get to a point where you are going to be moving on from some players. It's like the Fabian Schär conversation tonight. If you are going to improve, that's the sort of player that you're going to have to improve on. Joe Linton, is he going to start next season? I think there's a chance he won't. Well, if you get his number 10 in, I don't see a starting place for Joe. I don't see why Joe Linton plays does. If you get his number 10 in, who they want, Barnes is starting on the left. Gordon will start on the right.
Joe Willican.
But you need the squad. You do need the squad. If Barnes isn't doing it, you bring Joe Linton in, or you can play middle. I think that's where you need to go. Where you need to move these players on and improve in certain positions. So yeah, the starting centre half is one that can be upgraded. And I think as you get better and better, which the club will. Piff. Let's not forget Piff are in this to make Newcastle the best team in England. And to do that, you're going to have to upgrade certain players.
Yeah, I don't think so. Some of the comments Graham has not gone down so well. The Schär one and the Joe Linton one, yeah, they're not too popular, those ones. But
Joe Linton and Schär are both very good players. But would they if you're talking about your best players and now Bruno, Tonali, Nick Pope, they would probably get into the other top 4 teams. They wouldn't weaken them. Is Joe Linton getting in the top 4 team? Is he getting in Arsenal, City, Liverpool? No. But that's just the way it is. Joe Linton will prove to be. He'll still play 30 games next. Even if he's not starting, he'll still play 30 games next season. He'll be a crucial part of what happens at Newcastle. That is for sure. But that's what, as you get better, you need better squads.
Yeah, definitely. We need a squad.
Graeme gives us the hard answers, that's for sure. It's not about telling people what they want to hear. It's about telling people his opinion, and this is why we enjoy having you on, Graeme. It's been a pleasure. But look, that's it for tonight. Great to have you on, Graeme, as always. Thank you for joining us. Just tell us where we can find you, your podcast and your account. Where can we find you?
At Graeme Bailey on Twitter, download. I'm on the Talking Transfers pod every week now, the most popular weekly transfer pod out there at the minute in top 20 in England. So please download that if you want to hear anything. A little bit of Newcastle, but hey, I'll save it all for you guys.
Come in here to throw the punches. Love it.
Yeah,
I'm full of praise, you guys. You know, it's you know, and there wasn't even any of national journey who predicted you finish above Manchester United last season. I missed it out, but there wasn't many who predicted it, guys. But
no, and all you have to do now is predict we finish above a Villa with your mate. Is it top 5 next season? Getting Champions League? I think you know it's a big season for Eddie Howe and Newcastle, because you know, as much as we all loving the top fifth, they're not going to take anything other than Champions League going forward from now. You're in the Champions League. They're not going to take seasons dropping out of it now. So the fans have to be really, really committed to this now. You know, it's all very well being in love with the team and the manager as it is now. It's PIF are in this to. They're not here just to be fluffy and make Newcastle fans feel good about the club. They're in to win. They're in to make Newcastle the best team in England. The best team. That's what they're here to do. And then they might have to crack a few eggs on the way. Yeah.
That's for sure.
Stick around after the credits, Graeme, to tell us who that mystery name is. Don't go rushing off. We want to hear that. But I think from Pete and myself and from all the listeners, watchers, thanks a million for coming on again, Graeme. Great to have you on our one of our ASM farewell shows. But how'd you like that?
That's why I wore all black for Pete, just in his honour. I know he was in mourning, so I thought I'd wear black because he was mourning the loss.
I've still not got any tissues.
Pete will have a Harvey Barnes shirt but before September. Pete will have a Harvey Barnes shirt.
He's ripping the Madison one off now. He's going to make letters for Barnes.
He'll have ASM Who on the back.
One thing left to say. How'd you like that? Good night, everyone.
How you like